Hey everybody, welcome back to the farm. This week I am spraying everybody's chemical that they love to hate on the horse pastures again, Grazon. Well, let me clarify that. Every homeowner loves to hate Grazon, and I'll explain that to you in just a minute. So a couple of months back, I picked up this sprayer, 100-gallon sprayer. Needed a little bit of work, but I wanted a boomless sprayer. About 2 years ago, I borrowed a sprayer from a buddy of mine, and it was a boom sprayer. So it had big booms that came up and they crossed in the back, and I had to lay them down. I made 3 videos of me spraying Grazon. I did a spraying the Grazon, I did a 2-week update, and then I did a 7-week update. Well, that sprayer worked great. However, the booms were always trying to, if you got too close to the fence, because if you move the tractor an inch, it moves the end of that boom 30 feet out, like a foot. So, I mean, that's not an exact measurement, but I'm saying any little movement inside the tractor moves the booms exponentially. And so I caught the fence once, I caught a tree once, and they just spray straight down. So you can't do any spraying out, or not with this particular sprayer that I borrowed anyway. So now I've got a boomless sprayer. I'm gonna go over it in just a second and show you what was wrong with it when I bought it and what I had to do to fix it to get it up and running. I'm spraying Grazon again, and when I made that 3 series video a couple of years ago, I got so many hateful comments about Grazon. Guys, let me tell you something. I'm going to give you all the disclaimers now. Grazon is an exceptional product when used correctly, okay? I know all the legal aspects of it, so you don't need to tell me. You need to educate yourself before you go to the farmers and get free manure. More on that in a second. As with any chemical, there's a precaution label on the back of it. Doesn't matter if it's window washer or herbicide. Everything that you put in your mouth, everything that your animals put in your mouth has been treated with some kind of a herbicide or a pesticide. This is no different. I'm got no problem with the organic people out there that only put organics in their mouth. You are not putting 100% organic in your mouth 100% of the time. You are eating something or putting something in your mouth or drinking something that has been treated with a herbicide or an insecticide or a pesticide at one time. This chemical that I'm spraying, I understand that it goes into the soil and it stays in the soil. That's what it's intended to do. It is intended to kill weeds, and that's what it does, and it does it very well. I have used other products, but this is called Grazon for a reason. It's so that your animals can graze on it right after application. It's not they got to stay off of it for 48 hours, 72 hours a week, whatever. They can graze on it immediately. That's number one. Number 2 is it kills all the weeds. You may want weeds. You may think weeds are healthy. You may love thistle and all kinds of other stuff on your property. That's great. You keep it on your property. I don't want it on my property. The horses don't eat it. The horses graze around it, and it just keeps encroaching and taking over your pasture. And pretty soon you don't have a pasture of grass that's grazable. You have a pasture of weeds that's not grazable. That's the reason I'm doing this. So if you don't agree with it, great. Turn your video off and go watch something else. And any of the hay that I make on the backfield will not be sold, it will not be given away, and it will not be leaving this farm. It will stay here on the farm and be used for my personal use. Now, when I said the homeowners hate this chemical, what I meant by that is the only people that are leaving ugly comments is the guy that went out and decided, he lives in a neighborhood, and he decided he's gonna turn the little flower bed on the side of his house into a garden for his wife. And he's gonna till it up, and he's gonna do all the hard work, and then he's just gonna let his wife come in and plant the tomatoes and the couple of little pepper plants. Well, she plants them after he preps everything and they die. He can't figure out why. Now he wants to do his research, and he figures out that that manure he got for free from the farmer John down the street was treated with Grazon. And it does not differentiate a tomato plant from a weed of any type, okay? This chemical kills well over 100 type of weeds. Not well over, but over 100 type of weeds, 104, 107, and some woody products. It does not differentiate your wife's tomato plant or your wife's pepper plant, okay? I'm sorry you are too cheap to go to Home Depot and buy a bag of black cow manure for $7, or go to Tractor Supply and buy a bag of generic manure for $4, okay? It's 13 pounds per bag, and that little garden that you're trying to do in your neighborhood isn't going to take very many bags. But again, you want to paint everybody that uses this chemical with a broad stroke of your Democratic brush and condemn everybody and then say how bad it is and this, that, and the other. Do your research before you put your wife's tomato plants in the ground. Okay, I'm done talking about that. So I picked this sprayer up. I drove an hour to pick it up, and it wasn't what the seller said it was. It had a lot more issues. I asked him what was wrong with it before I got there, and he told me one thing that was wrong with it. And then when I got there, it had numerous problems wrong with it. But I'd driven so far to get it. So anyway, we negotiated on the price, and I got it. I knew I could fix it, so I fixed it. So let me show you what I've got here. So it's an Ag Spray sprayer, 100 gallon. It's actually a lot more than 100, but you need this for agitation and mixing. It's a boomless, so each one of these sprays out about 15 feet, and it sprays out in an arc, and then it sprays straight down as well. So this whole area is fanned. It looks kind of like a sprinkler out in your front yard. It's got a massive, super beefy base on it. I had to get a new wand. The hose was good, but I had to get a new wand. I had to put a new supply and a new return hose on it. I had to get a new pump, and I had to get a new pressure regulator valve right there. And then I got a new liquid filled gauge, as well as the yellow spray tips. These sprayers by Ag Spray are about $4,500, and I'm not even into it for a quarter of that. A lot of you asked in the last video how much chemical I was using. So here's the Grazon, and it comes in a 2-gallon jug, and the surfactant comes in a 1-gallon jug. I am using 88 ounces per 100 gallons of Grazon, and I'm using 35 ounces of surfactant. And I'm using my wife's measuring cup to measure it. I just wash it out real good before I put it back in the counter. This is the back hay field. This has already been sprayed. It was sprayed about a month ago. If you didn't see it or you're new to the channel, I will link the playlist of the Grazon on the back of this video. But we got 36 bales of hay out of here last year on the first cutting. We only did one cutting, and it's looking really good. You can see it's just fescue back here, but there's so much seed head back here. This whole area is just covered, and I'm completely fine with fescue. My horses don't have to have Bermuda or any of the other stuff. They survive just fine. They keep their weight on just fine eating this. You can see the new grasses that are coming in after spraying and knocking out some weeds. But the field is looking very, very good. And that's what this is what I want my front fields to look like. And for the most part they do, except for paddock 2. And I'll explain that to you in just a second. But let me show you something over here on the tree line. See all of those smaller, lighter green trees in the front? Those are all Bradford pears. And I think we've all got them in one place or another. They were put up as an ornamental. You know, they bloom beautifully in the spring with the white, and then they turn red in the fall, and they're just very beautiful ornamentals. I think back in the 90s, I think every home builder was planting Bradford pears throughout the South, maybe the North. But anyway, now they're just growing wild. You know, some of them get those big old thorns on them that big, and they'll pop your tires on anything you drive over them if you happen to trim a branch down or something like that. So they really become quite a nuisance. And they're hard to trim because of those briars and stuff like that. So I gave one a sex change last week. Let me show you. So this right here is a Bradford pear. That is too, but I only did this one because I want this one to have some room. And you can see I'm cleaning out around it. I'm gonna open this up. I'm gonna trim some more around here, but I wanted to see if this was gonna take first. What I did is, this is the Bradford pear, obviously, and the massive root ball and everything's down here. This tree's well established. You can see it's 3 inches in diameter. Cut it off. This is Scion Wood, basically clippings from a Bartlett pear that you buy in the store. Big, you know, big green pears you buy in the store. So these are trimmings that's called Scion Wood off of a Bartlett pear. And there's buds here, 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 here. And what I did is I cut the cadmium layer on the tree, and then I cut the cadmium layer off of this Scion Wood, off the tree trimming at the end of the branch. I wrapped it in paraffin tape, and then I trimmed the cadmium layer back, and I stuck it down in between the cadmium layer and the tree, and then I took athletic tape and wrapped athletic tape around it real tight to hold the bark up against the Scion Wood, and then put tar over the top of it. And the reason I wrap this in paraffin is to keep this Scion Wood moist. It hadn't even been a week, and you can already see one of the buds is budding out. It busted through the paraffin tape. Pretty interesting. So I think it's gonna take. I'm gonna show you a picture of one that my buddy did 2 weeks ago on his property. I did another one back on the back of the property over there. And if these are successful, I will cut my own Scion Wood in January when the trees are dormant. I will put them in the refrigerator to keep them dormant. And then in the spring, in April, I will give several of these trees some transplants. Several more of these trees, some sex transplants. So I sprayed this entire paddock 2 right here. Paddock 1 is over there through the gate, and I did not spray it. But entire paddock 2 and paddock 3. Let me show you what I'm battling. Random weeds all over, like this. I don't know what a lot of this weed is. I know I've got henbit out here. I've got a lot of thistle. I've got mustard. So here's a thistle right here. And every one of those things on that flower is a seed. And then you can see just the amount of weeds right there. And then mustard. There's another thistle coming up. The thistle is the biggest thing. See the big seed head, the flowers. So when that flower releases its seed head, you see what happens. You just start getting thistle just everywhere, wherever one lands. And they're just inundated out here in this field. And those things spread like crazy. When they come up, the baby girls, my young 3-year-old team, they love to eat that burgundy head. And when they eat that burgundy head, they go and poop that out somewhere else in the pasture. And now I've got a thistle issue over there. So 2 years ago when I sprayed, I got excellent results. And I should have sprayed last year, but I didn't. And so now paddock 2 is just inundated with thistle and all the other stuff you see. So I've got to get on an annual spraying program, and I overseeded with fescue and rye back in October. I didn't tell you about that, but I borrowed a planter and a drill, and I drilled the pastures, and I got real good results with that. So I'm going to drill every year, and I'm going to spray every year. Paddock 2 is always open, so paddock 2 has got the most weeds. But paddock 3 here and paddock 1 back over there, one of those is closed off, and I use it for rotational grazing. So it'll either be 2 and 1 are open or 2 and 3 are open. Whichever one is closed is resting for about 2 weeks to allow new grass growth. It's no different than your house. You cut your grass on Saturday morning, and then you got to cut it again next Saturday morning. So just think what your yard would look like if you didn't cut it for 2 weeks. So that's what happens out here in the pasture. When I let the pasture rest for 2 weeks, I get all of that growth, and then I can close off 1 and open up 3 and let them go over to 3 and get some fresh grass, or vice versa. So that works out real good, and paddock 2 stays open all the time. So since everything is growing in so good, the girls did not finish the last of their hay. So what I'm going to do is, they're starting to use this as a shade shelter. We've been in the 80s for the last few days here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this hay ring out, and then I'm going to spread all the remainder of the hay all around in the bottom here, so that they can lay down and bed down if they want to in the shade. So this thing worked out real good. It's like I told you, it's going to be used for shade in the summer, and then it was going to be used as a hay cover in the winter, and it's done exactly that. So let's walk over here and see the girls real quick. The young girls are going to be back from Ohio on May the 3rd. They finally gave me an update on them. They said that they have been driving them as a team pretty much since they got them up there. They started them out on a sled. They've been on the manure spreader. They've been on wagon. They've been on a plow. They've worked them in a 4-hitch. They've been working them. They're probably ready to come home, but I'll be going up there in about 2 weeks to get them, so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm gonna stay on the ground with them for a day up there and work with them out in the field and get a good video on that. There's Miss Becky. She's enjoying the fan action up above because it's, like I said, 86, I think, today. And then Miss Jewel over here. You can see the wind blowing her. Get the brushes out and brush them off. Jewel is really enjoying the shade right now. And Becky is in Jewel's stall picking up any oats that Jewel dropped. She has learned that Jewel is a messy eater, and she's gonna leave a lot of table scraps on the ground. So I'm gonna let that Grazon sit out there for at least 2 weeks. The pastures really need to be cut, but I didn't want to cut them. I wanted to get the chemical on the leaves while they were out. It would look a lot better if it was cut, but I'll cut it in 2 weeks because you want that chemical to really leach in for at least 2 weeks before you cut it. So I will go back, I will do an update video in 2 weeks like I did last time, show you what the results were. And again, it is an awesome chemical when used correctly. I'm gonna let Becky and Jewel stay up here in the barnyard for a little bit while I tend to a couple more errands, and appreciate you watching this week. As always, remember who you are, be kind to those around you, stand up for what you believe in.